All right. Well, welcome aboard, horizontal viewers, and now welcome aboard, vertical viewers. This is a little foolish, but we're going to do a little, what they call in the computer world, A/B testing. So we're A/B testing which video feed do you prefer, does YouTube prefer, all at the same time. Now I should probably be using, there's some software, another company I can sign up for, Resend or something like that. I'm tired of creating accounts. So today, to both of my potential audiences, I will be reading chapter 2 of An Actor Prepares. I have a camera on a tripod doing the horizontal, and I am dangling my phone from the top of my laptop to do the vertical. So if we're going to chat, I'll do my best. I don't see the chat on the vertical. I do have the chat on the other one. I can see that no one is currently watching. So I wonder if YouTube's upset that I'm dual broadcasting. Maybe I should just wait. Maybe I should just see when does the audience emerge. See, the lighting's a little bad. Let's do a little technical work while we're here. Let's add a little something on the lower level here, I think. Though, perhaps I'm wrong to do that. I don't know. So still rocking 0. Both feeds, as if no one is interested in viewing. Do I see myself viewing on this one? Doesn't look like it. Oh, one watching. And how about a smiley face? Oh, look at that. I can do this. Oh, someone is here. Hi. So you came in through this one. All right. Well, welcome. So we're going to get to it then. Since you have joined, we're going with An Actor Prepares, Chapter 2. And good. Hey, all right. Are you guys trying to prepare to be actors? I feel like everyone is sort of an actor in this day and age. However, not all of us is prepared, so I have not read through this. And I'm going to read it with you. And we're going to find out which production method is better today. Currently, the phone is working much better. So I will pander to this audience instead of the other audience, which is non-existent. So, chapter 1, we learned that he's likely Stanislavsky, though the narrator of the book is in and acting. He's at the theater. He's learning the ropes. He's playing Othello specifically from Shakespeare, and they're rehearsing, and I think it kind of ended off as a true performance. Now, whether it was in front of a live audience or not, I don't know. But there was someone sort of upstaged him in the eyes of the director, and he was slightly upset about it. So in chapter 2, we'll find out what that means. So, When Acting is an Art is the name of chapter 2's title. And it's broken down into sections. Maybe the other one was. Nope. Looks like it's a pretty large canon. Yeah, it is, but it's we're gonna find out. It's a bit written like a journal, so he's kind of, it's a journal entries as he's in this school of acting. I guess I should take lighting school here, right? So today we were called together to hear the director's criticism of our performances. He said, "Above all, look for what is fine in art and try to understand it. Therefore, we shall begin by discussing the constructive elements of the test. There are only two moments worth noting. The first, when Maria threw herself down the staircase with the despairing cry of, 'Oh, help me!' And the second, more extended in time, when Kostya Nazvanov, he's Russian, by the way, said, 'Blood, Iago, blood!' In both instances, so now we might have just learned that the narrator is actually Kostya Nazvanov instead of Stanislavsky, because that was the line the narrator delivered. So I guess the narrator isn't actually the author. Maybe. In both instances, you who were playing and we who were watching gave ourselves up completely to what was happening on the stage. Such successful moments by themselves we can recognize as belonging to the art of living a part. And what is this art? I asked. You experienced it yourself. Suppose you state what you felt. I neither know nor remember, said I, embarrassed by Tortsov's praise. What? You do not remember your own inner excitement? You do not remember that your hands, your eyes, and your whole body tried to throw themselves forward to grasp something? You do not remember how you bit your lips and barely restrained your tears? Now that you tell me about what happened, I seem to remember my actions, I confessed. But without me, you could not have understood the ways in which your feelings found expression. No, I admit, I couldn't. You were acting with your subconscious, intuitively, he concluded. Perhaps, I do not know, but is that good or bad? Very good if your intuition carries with you along the right path, and very bad if it makes a mistake, explained Tortsov. During the exhibition performance, it did not mislead you, and what you gave us in those few successful moments was excellent. Is that really true? I asked. Yes, because the very best that can happen is to have the actor completely carried away by the play, regardless of his own will. He lives the part, not noticing how he feels, not thinking about what he does, and it all moves of its own accord, subconsciously and intuitively. Salvini said, the great actor should be full of feeling, and especially he should feel the thing he is portraying. He must feel an emotion not only once or twice while he is studying his part, but to a greater or lesser degree every time he plays it, no matter whether it is the first or the 1,000th time. Unfortunately, this is not within our control. Our subconscious is inaccessible to our consciousness. We cannot enter into that realm. If for any reason we do penetrate into it, then the subconscious becomes conscious and dies. It's very deep. The result is a predicament. We are supposed to create under inspiration. Only our subconscious gives us inspiration. Yet we apparently can use the subconscious only through our consciousness, which kills it. Fortunately, there is a way out. We find the solution in oblique instead of a direct approach. In the soul of a human being, there are certain elements which are subject to consciousness and will. These accessible parts are capable in turn of acting on psychic processes that are involuntary. To be sure, this calls for extremely complicated creative work. It is carried on in part under the control of our subconsciousness, but a much more significant portion is subconscious and involuntary. or actually, in part under the control of our consciousness. Did I say subconscious? To rouse your subconscious to create work, there is a special technique. We must leave all that is the fullest sense subconscious to nature and address ourselves to what is within our reach. When the subconscious, when intuition enters into our work, we must know how not to interfere. One cannot always create subconsciously with inspiration. No such genius exists in the world. Therefore, our art teaches us, first of all, to create subconsciously and rightly, because that will best prepare the way for the blossoming of the subconscious, which is inspiration. The more you have of conscious creative moments in your role, the more chance you will have of flow of inspiration. What do you guys think of that so far? That's interesting. So he's saying the unconscious actions, the true nature of your existence is what you're doing, your actions is the true nature of us. While if we consciously do that, we interfere with the truth of that, I suppose. Interesting. I don't know. Continuing. You may play well or you may play badly. The important thing is that you should play truly, wrote Shkepskin to his pupil Schlumsky. To play truly means to be right, logical, coherent, to think, strive, feel, and act in unison with your role. If you take all these internal processes and adapt them to the spiritual and physical life of the person you are representing, we call that living the part. This is the supreme significance in creative work, aside from the fact that it opens up avenues for inspiration. Leaving the part helps the artist to carry out one of his main objectives. His job is not to present merely the external life of his character. He must fit his own human qualities to the life of this other person and pour into it all of his own soul. The fundamental aim of our art is the creation of this inner life of a human spirit and its expression in an artistic form. That is why we begin by thinking about the inner side of a role and how to create its spiritual life through the help of the internal process of living the part. You must live by it by actually experiencing feelings that are analogous to it each and every time you repeat the process of creating it. Why is the subconscious so dependent on the conscious? Said I. It seems entirely normal to me, was the reply. The use of steam, electricity, wind, water, and other involuntary forces in nature is dependent on the intelligence of an engineer. Our subconscious power cannot function without its own engineer. Our conscious technique is it only when an actor feels that his inner and outer life on the stage is flowing naturally and normally. In the circumstances that surround him, that the deeper sources of his subconscious gently open, and from them come feelings we cannot always analyze. For a shorter or longer space of time, they take possession of us, whether some inner instinct bids them. Since we do not understand this governing power and cannot study it, we actors call it simply nature. Interesting so far. But if you break the laws of normal organic life and cease to function rightly, then this highly sensitive subconscious becomes alarmed and withdraws. To avoid this, plan your role consciously at first and play it truthfully. At this point, realism and even naturalism in the inner preparation of a part is essential, because it causes your subconscious to work and induces outbursts of inspiration. So, fake it until you make it, I think. Might be what we're getting at here in a more modern cliche form. From what you have said, I gather that to study our part, we must assimilate a psychological technique of living a part. and that this will help us to accomplish our main objective, which is to create the life of a human spirit, Paul Schutzstoff said. That is correct, but not complete, said Torstoff. Our aim is not only to create the life of a human spirit, but also to express it in a beautiful artistic form. An actor is under the obligation to live his part inwardly and then to give to his experience an external embodiment. I ask you to note especially that the dependence of the body on the soul is particularly important in our School of Art. In order to express a more delicate and largely subconscious life, it is necessary to have control of an unusually responsive, excellently prepared vocal and physical apparatus. This apparatus must be ready instantly and exactly to reproduce most delicate and all but intangible feelings with great sensitiveness and directness. Sensitivity, I think, probably better word there, but that's okay. That is why an actor of our type is obliged to work so much more than others, both on his inner equipment, which creates the life of the part, and also on his outer physical apparatus, which should reproduce the results of the creative work of his emotions with precision. Even the externalizing of a role is greatly influenced by the subconscious. In fact, no artificial theatrical technique can even compare with the marvels that nature brings forth. I have pointed out to you today, in general outlines, what we consider essential. Our experience has led to a firm belief that only our kind of art, soaked as it is in the living experiences of human beings, can artistically reproduce the impalpable shadings and depths of life. Only such art can completely absorb the spectator and make both understand and also inwardly experience the happenings on the stage, enriching his inner life and leaving impressions which will not fade with time. Have you guys watched Hamnet? There was a film that was someone won an Oscar. I can't remember who won the Oscar. I think she did. I think if you watch that film, not to give anything away, I think the final performance that's delivered on stage really kind of covers that, and it's worth watching if you're trying to prepare as an actor. I shall continue. Moreover, and this is of primary importance, the organic basis of the laws of nature on which our art is founded will protect you in the future from going down the wrong path. Who knows under what directors or in what theaters you will work? Not everywhere, not with everyone. Will you find creative work based on nature? In the vast majority of theaters, the actors and producers are constantly violating nature in the most shameless manner. But if you are sure of the limits of true art and of the organic laws of nature, you will not go astray, and you will be able to understand your mistakes and correct them. That is why a study of the foundations of our art is the beginning of the work of every student actor. Yes, yes, I exclaimed. I am so happy that I was able to take a step, if only a small one, in that direction. One giant leap for mankind, one small step for an actor. Not so fast, said Torstoff, otherwise you will suffer the bitterest delusion. Do not mix up living your part with what you showed us on the stage. Why? What did I show? I have told you that in all that big scene from Othello, there were only a few minutes in which you succeeded in living the part. I used them to illustrate to you and to the other students the foundations of our type of art. However, if we speak of the whole scene between Othello and Iago, we certainly cannot call it our type of art. What is it, then? That is what we call forced acting, defined the director. And what really is that? Said I, puzzled. When one acts as you did, he explained, there are individual moments when you suddenly and unexpectedly rise to great artistic heights and thrill for your audience. In such moments, you are creating according to your inspiration, improvising, as it were. But would you feel yourself capable enough or strong enough spiritually or physically to play the 5 great acts of Othello with the same lift with which you accidentally played part of that one short scene? I do not know, I said conscientiously. I know, unquestionably, that such an undertaking would be far beyond the strength not only of a genius with an extraordinary temperament, but even of a very Hercules, answered Tortsoff. For our purposes, you must have, in addition to the help of nature, a well-worked-out psychological technique, an enormous talent, and great physical and nervous reserves. You have not all these things, any more than do the personality actors who do not admit technique. They, as you did, rely entirely on inspiration. If this inspiration does not turn up, then neither you nor they have anything with which to fill in the blank spaces. You have long stretches of nervous let-down in playing your part, complete artistic impotence, and a naive, amateurish sort of acting. At such times, your playing is lifeless, stilted. Consequently, high moments alternate with overacting. Very critical. He's very critical. I suppose that is what it takes, though, to push someone sometimes. Also, sometimes it makes them collapse. So what do we think? And what do you guys think so far? Digging deep to find the art within acting. I believe it to be true. I think what he's saying is how you find the creativeness of yourself. For instance, as a writer, or when I'm writing, I find that writing is you can try to force it. You can do this, you can do that. But the best moment is when you just kind of, the older days they called it sort of stream of consciousness, but with some purpose. And when you're writing your characters, you got to feel those characters that you have as you're writing them. And then, of course, if you're acting them, you're going to do the same thing. So I'm losing you guys. That's all right. That's all right. I shall continue. Into the void, as it were. And it's going to be for a little while. So further into the void we go. No one has showed up on the other live stream. No one's showing up on this live stream anymore. I've lost you. Come back to me. I suppose I should try to make it more exciting, but how does one make reading a book more exciting besides some sort of live action representation going on in the back? I do not have resources for such a thing at this moment in time. So, we shall continue. Section 2, Chapter 2, An Actor Prepares. When acting is an art, and not just artistic impotence, naive, amateurish sort of acting, such as the director just finished saying. Today we heard some more from Tortsoff about our acting. When he came to the classroom, he turned to Paul and said to him, "You too gave us some interesting moments, but they were rather typical of the art of representation. Now, since you successfully demonstrated this other way of acting, Paul, why not recall for us how you created the role of Iago?" suggested the director. Now, before I go on, I just had a thought. This reminds me of the scene in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood where I don't know her name, but the child actress on the set looks to Leonardo DiCaprio and says, "That was the greatest acting I've ever seen," and he kind of tears up. So there's another something to go take a look at if you haven't seen it, don't know what I'm referring to. And I continue. "I went right at the role for this inner content and studied that for a long time," said Paul. "At home it seemed to me that I really did live the part, and at some of the rehearsals there were certain places in the role that I seemed to feel. Therefore I do not know what the art of representation has to do with it. In it the actor also lives his part," says Tortzoff. "This partial identity for our method is what makes it impossible to consider this other type also true art. Yet his objective is different. He lives his part as a preparation for perfecting an external form. Once that is determined to have his satisfaction, he reproduces that from form through the aid of mechanically trained muscles. Therefore, in this other school, living your role is not the chief moment of creation as it is with us, but one of the preparatory stages for further artistic work." But Paul did use his own feelings at the exhibition performance, I maintained. Someone else agreed with me and insisted that in Paul's acting, just as in mine, there had been a few scattered moments of truly living the part, mixed with a lot of incorrect acting. Now, to continue to talk about my performance here, sometimes I get in a reading groove, and I don't try to... So I have to take a moment to make sure that I'm trying to continue to deliver a book that I've never read as interestingly as possible. "No," insisted Tortzoff. "In our art, you must live the part every moment that you are playing it, and every time. Each time it is recreated, it must be lived afresh and incarnated afresh. This describes the few successful moments in Kostya's acting, but I did not notice freshness in improvisation or in feeling his part in Paul's playing. On the contrary, I was astonished in a number of places by the accuracy and artistic finish of a form and method of acting which is permanently fixed and which is produced with a certain inner coldness. However, I did feel in those moments that the original, of which this was only the artificial copy, had been good and true. This echo of a former process of living the part made his acting, in certain moments, a true example of the art of representation. How could I have got hold of the art of mere reproduction?" Paul could not understand. "Let us find out by your telling us more about how you prepared your Iago," suggested the director. "To be sure that my feelings were externally reflected, I used a mirror." "You are my mirror. I'm going to... The nice part about reviewing this mirror is it exists